All right, Veronica, it is great to be here with you in the National Conflict Resolution Center's City Heights office. I understand that you really run a lot of community mediations out of this office, and that's something that we want to learn a little bit more about today. So, first, I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit about what a community mediation is and how is that different from maybe one of the litigated cases that we might see go through West Coast Resolution Group. What is a community mediation case?
A community mediation, the types of disputes that we can do, it's really anything that is in the civil area. And so we do get a lot of different cases, but the majority of them, or the most common ones, I should say, are landlord and tenant disputes, neighbor to neighbor disputes, civil harassment cases, small consumer merchant type disputes or small business disputes. Anything, if it's a monetary dispute, anything that is under the $10,000 limit. We also do a lot of family disputes. One of our very common scenarios is a parent and teen mediation. A large family, perhaps sometimes dealing with issues over their elderly parents. They come in, they sit down, and they talk about what they're going to do. So those are kind of the disputes that we do. As you've heard, is a very wide range of types of situations that we can mediate.
So now that we understand the types of cases that come in, how do I qualify? I mean, what I know this is a no-cost service. So what are some of the qualifications to be able to bring my case to you?
We do not ask for income verification or how large your family is, or whether or not you are on government assistance. The only real requirement is that you reside in the county of San Diego to be able to access our services.
Okay, great. Let's say I have one of those disputes and I call this office to, ask about setting up a mediation. How does that phone call with you go? What types of questions do you ask? What does that look like?
Well, our goal as the case coordinators is to really do a couple of things. First, we have to identify that the case that you're bringing to us is something that we can mediate. Most of the time we can. If it's like a criminal matter or a very, complex case, then we would have to refer that out. But so that's our first job, identifying that the case is something that we can take in. Number two, we try to figure out what has the client done to try to mitigate the situation. Because when we come in, when we call the responding party, we want to be that last step. The initiator, who is the person bringing the complaint to us, has already tried certain things. They've already called, they've already sent letters, they've already sent emails, and it hasn't worked. So now that's why they're coming to us. So we want to know what you have done. What has the client done to try to mitigate the situation? And so if the dispute is at that point where, okay, now we can intervene, my next question is, okay, I need the contact information. So the initiating party provides me with the contact information for the responding party. And then the latter part of the conversation is really giving the information to the client. Now I'm going to send a dispute letter. I'm going to follow up with a phone call. If the responding party agrees to mediate, then we will set up an appointment and I'm going to be in contact with you to get that scheduled.
Great.
So those are kind of like the questions that we ask during that intake call. Sometimes, we find that it's a dispute that we are unable to mediate for a couple of reasons. It might be that the initiating party says, that sounds great, but I don't think this is right for me. I don't think that mediation is appropriate for me, or I don't want to drive down there, or whatever reason parties might have or clients might have to not want to mediate. A lot of the work also involves just helping them create an action plan for their dispute. So it might be that sometimes we get clients who just call in, and a very common example, for example, they call in and they say, my neighbor's dog barks all night long and I don't know what to do. I don't know my neighbor's name. I don't know where to go. And so a lot of that work is just kind of helping them understand, what can they do? Okay, you have this dispute, you have this problem. What are the steps that you can take? And if they don't work, then we can end in a mediation. But let's talk about what you can do in between before you get to that point. So a lot of the work in those intake calls, as we call them, is just kind of figuring out if we can mediate it, or if there's certain things that need to be done before we can mediate it, or refer it out if it's something that we are not going to be able to schedule.
So it sounds like you really do help the initiator understand, if they don't know already, what some of those steps they can take before mediation are, kind of walk them through that a little bit. What do you do if you've decided mediation is the best route and you call the respondent and they're the ones who say, no way, I'm not coming in?
It happens, definitely it happens. And so, we try our best to really sell it to them, And what we tell the responding party is, you're going to come to a place where you're going to be greeted by friendly individuals. This is a safe space where you're going to have the opportunity to really talk about what the dispute is from your perspective. This is not a space where only the initiator gets to talk about their complaint. You are really going to have that opportunity to really talk and say what it is you think is a problem and how you would like to get it resolved. Doesn't cost anything, it's at no cost to our clients. And so we really try our best to get them to agree and make them feel like, yeah, this is something worth their while. But sometimes, we try our best and it doesn't work. And if the responding party says, no, I don't want to do that, then we do the same thing with them as we did with the initiator. Let's talk about an action plan. What can you do?
Because I imagine for a lot of the responding parties, even if they don't want to come in at first, they are experiencing this grievance in their neighborhood or, in this business or whatever it is. And I'm sure they're still eager for some assistance. They probably want it resolved at some level. So it sounds like you really appeal to that, and that becomes some of the reason they do become motivated to come in.
Yeah, definitely. And, people have different reasons for not wanting to come, but we'll try our best. And if in the end they say, no, we don't want to do that, we will help them understand what can they do, what other steps they can take, and really empower them. A lot of the work that we do is empower people to resolve conflict in a way that is more respectable, in a way that they treat each other with more dignity, with more respect. And so a lot of our phone work is just that, really listening, putting ourselves in their shoes, just showing that empathy towards others, and really giving them the tools to try to approach this conflict and try to find a resolution.
All right, so let's say best case scenario, both parties have agreed to come in for mediation. They show up here at your office. What can they expect as they walk in day of?
That's an excellent question. So when you walk through our doors, we are going to make you feel like you're part of this little family. You will be greeted by a friendly face who will escort you to one of our conference rooms. The mediator usually arrives about 30 minutes before, and in that meantime where everyone's kind of coming in, the mediator reviews the case file, make sure we have all the forms in there. Then when it's time for the mediation to begin, the mediator comes out and introduces him or herself to the parties. And then they're escorted into our large conference room where the parties meet. Our model of mediation is that it's a joint session. So we really try not to shuffle back and forth, because mediation it's a meeting, right? You're meeting together. And so we try to get them to be in the same room, and then the mediation gets started. The mediator guides the process. Our process is a facilitative process. So the parties are being guided by this person to talk about what the dispute is and what it is that they want out of this mediation. But we also not only focus on the complaint. We try to help people understand what is the underlying need in this complaint that is really driving it, and how we can get the parties to talk about how this lack of not getting what they need, how it's impacting them, and what they're going to do to resolve it. The sessions usually take around 2 hours, depending on the complexity of the case. It might run a little bit longer, but we do try to wrap it up in about 2 hours. And hopefully if they reach an agreement, we will mostly all of the time type it up for them. So they will leave with a written typed agreement.
Great. As you mentioned, kind of everyone being together, facilitative model in these types of mediations that are community mediations, it makes a lot of sense because these are people who have probably continuing relationship, right? If they're neighbors or working together, something like that. So I know that's a different model than always exists in mediation, but for your types of cases, that's generally keeping people together and the mediator really facilitating their solutions tends to be the best way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. And a really empowering aspect of our mediation is that the parties come up with their own solutions. We are not telling them who's right, who's wrong, and what the solution is. The mediator is there to, again, empower them to resolve their conflict, right, through this dialogue. And so whatever resolution they come up with, it's their own. They came up with that. And that's very powerful, If you go to court, somebody's telling you what to do, right? If you go to an attorney, they're going to tell you what to do. In this space that we create for you, you are empowered to come up with your own resolution. And I think that's really powerful. And also, the resolution that we get is more likely that whatever agreement they have, it will be sustained. It's a more sustainable resolution because you came up with your own resolution instead of someone kind of telling you what to do, right?
Well, that's wonderful. And that's what the National Conflict Resolution Center, I know, is all about, is empowering people to really own both the issues that they have as well as the solutions. So thank you for giving us a glimpse into what it's like to come into mediation with your office or any of the other NCRC community mediation sites. And good luck with your work. And thank you again.
Thank you for visiting us. We appreciate it.